Today I am chatting with Pat Leonard, Giants beat writer for the New York Daily News and host of Talking Ball with Pat Leonard. Pat, so great to have you here.
Katie, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Let's talk about the New York Giants. You know where we got to start with the draft. So there's a lot of intrigue with that pick number 3. How do you see this shaking out? Do they draft Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter? Is it Shedeur?
Yeah, that's a great question. They need a quarterback so badly, but this feels like the draft. It's not the draft to need a quarterback. Last year, when there were the six going in the first round, felt like the Giants had their pick of a lot of different top prospects. You look at how promising Michael Penix Jr. looks down in Atlanta. Once he gets in, Bo Nix would have won Offensive Rookie of the Year if Jaden Daniels wasn't so special. They try to trade up for Drake May at number 3, and the Patriots say no, thank you, and take him instead. So now they're at this position where they win a game late in a bad season. So instead of having the number 1 pick where they could take Cam Ward from Miami, now they're at number 3. And the question is Shedeur Sanders the guy there? As you and I sit here right now on April 7th, I say they don't take Shedeur Sanders. I think they end up taking, if it's Carter who falls there or if it's Hunter, I think either one of those players is the pick. Now, Jackson Dart, I think, would be a player to look at from Ole Miss as a quarterback that they could get maybe in a trade up back into the first round if they don't go
Mhm.
QB there. Shedeur is so fascinating, though, because he's confident. He would, you can tell, welcome the big lights and the bright stage of what New York and the New York market and the Giants franchise would offer. And really, Katie, they need somebody to kind of take the reins of the locker room at this point and
Yeah.
say, let's take this franchise in a different direction. But I would say more questions than answers still coming out of that pro day about that prospect.
It does feel like it. Yeah. If they do go with Shedeur at 3, maybe further down, how do you think he would fit into that system?
How would Shador fit into the Giants system? I think it would be tricky because Dable puts everything on the quarterback, essentially.
Yes.
You think about Josh Allen, and the reason Brian Dable is the head coach of the New York Giants is because of the work he and Josh Allen did together. And you look on the flip side, why did Daniel Jones not work out in New York? Now, you could say, well, he's obviously far and away a lesser prospect and player than Josh Allen. But also, did Dable adjust much to what Daniel Jones did well and didn't do well? Or did he roll out the same system and say, can you handle what Josh did or not? Like in
Mhm.
year one, they ran a lot of run based quarterback run read option concepts that Daniel Jones flourished in, kind of leaning into his strengths and steering away from his weaknesses. As Dable tried to open it up and say, can you handle the Josh system? It wasn't happening. It couldn't happen. It wasn't going to. Now,
Mhm.
Shador has some mobility, but is not a runner. He's more of a pocket passer. He's a guy who can get the ball out to his weapons for those catch and runs. We saw some nice deep balls, some deep throws from him in Boulder, but
Mhm.
I'm not sure if he has the arm and the full physical skill set to handle I would say kind of the variability and the figuring out on the second level as the pass rush comes in and as the play is breaking down. Can he get outside the pocket, create what isn't there? Because one thing we know about Shador, even though his production was very high in college, his sack total also was very high in college. And that's one thing with a Giants offensive line that hasn't consistently protected the quarterback
Mhm.
adequately. I worry about the fit of a Shador versus if they were able to get a guy like Cam Ward, who is able to maneuver a little bit better, a bigger bodied guy with a bigger arm. I think that skill set probably fits better in a Giant system than Shador.
They just had to win that one game, I tell you. So if it is Travis Hunter, this is man, he is such a unique player to me. How would
Yeah.
you see this team utilizing him if they do get him? Offense, defense, both? It feels like he could be such a different fit on so many different teams.
No, it's a great question. I think, well, first you hit the nail on the head in my opinion on this prospect, which is I think Travis Hunter is the kind of player where depending on where he goes, he could either be unlocked as a superstar immediately
Yeah.
or be kind of searching for his way in a system that maybe isn't utilizing him properly.
Mm.
It's a fascinating thing. You could tell by the fact that he only ran routes as a receiver at the pro day there. And he said this, he wants to be a receiver. And
Mhm.
teams are tantalized by his ability, though, on both sides of the ball. If he went to the Giants, I think he would play more receiver than people realize. It seems like though Hunter's trying to steer it that way regardless. I look at Dable's offense and I see that they have they put a premium on production at the slot position. You think about Cole Beasley back in Buffalo. They drafted Wan'Dale Robinson as a second round pick in their first draft back in 2022. Wan'Dale has a ton of catches, but the production, the route running, he's more of a weapon than a true slot, is how I view it on their offense. So it does present a need and an exciting possibility. If you added Travis Hunter to the Giants, if he played a lot of offense, you'd have Malik Neighbors and Hunter alternating between slot and outside, with Slayton as a deep threat and a strong route runner on the other side. I think that that's something that is a clear need and upgrade for the Giants. And then at corner, Katie, you could figure out a lot of different ways to use him. The bottom line is this: in a zone-based concept that Shane Bowen runs, if you can have Travis Hunter, let's say, playing slot corner, or in a dime package, being able to rover around and get his hands on the football, if that quarterback makes a mistake, Hunter is grabbing it and taking it the other way. So
Yep.
I think it would be fascinating. I was joking with somebody at the NFL owners meetings that if he became a Giant, let's say, because I know the Giants do view him as a very strong corner who has receiver abilities.
Yeah.
Let's say they played him mostly at corner in week one, but the Giants offense struggled and they lost 17-10 despite a good defensive performance. You know that in week two, he'd play 60 snaps on offense for
Oh,
Brian
he would.
Dable. And so, right. So it could go back and forth. That would be a luxury. It would also be fun to cover. He's an elite prospect, though, for sure.
Well, and this draft is so interesting for them because it's no secret that Brian Daboll and Joe Shane are fighting for their jobs right now. Will that affect their strategy heading into the draft? Like, could you see them making any big trades or splashes simply out of urgency?
Oh, good question. Well, if they draft Abdul Carter, could they trade Kayvon Thibodeau because you're not getting anything? If you don't trade him now, if you try to trade him later, you're getting less. And if you draft
Mhm.
Abdul Carter, you could say, hey, we got a three-headed monster as a pass rush on the outside, so we'll create some more depth there. Or you could get some value and try to parlay some of those picks that you get in a Thibodeau trade, or maybe you try to acquire an offensive weapon. Because Katie, the reality is, like, you're bringing up something that's very important here for the Giants and for Shane and Dable, is they've kind of attacked the defensive side of the ball in free agency so far this offseason, but they've barely touched the 31st ranked offense out of 32 teams in the NFL,
Yep.
outside of some depth additions. So, yes, they do need to make some moves here. It does need to be motivated by their job security as well as just putting a competitive product on the field. This is why, even though when they pursued Matthew Stafford, Katie, there were some people who said, wow, this is such a desperate move, right? They're just trying to save their jobs. And I said, yeah, that may be true, but it kind of aligns that this would make them a lot better of a team, So like I
Both
liked
things
that.
can be true.
Yeah, I didn't mind. In fact, I liked the swing that Joe Shane took there of saying, hey, Matthew Stafford, if we get him, he augments everything about our offense, about our team.
Mhm.
And I thought it also signaled that, looking to the draft, it signaled to me that they didn't have a full confidence in an ability to get a franchise quarterback at 3. So it was an ability or a solution to, okay, if our franchise QB isn't there, we get the veteran who can help us win right away, steady that position, and allow us to go best player available to
Mhm.
build the roster from within and up from the foundation. This is, though, why, Katie, to your question, they're between a rock and a hard place here, because if you draft Abdul Carter, he helps your team a little bit, but do you go up to 5 wins? Does that save your job? Probably not. Same could probably go for Travis Hunter. Now, if you draft the quarterback, you can sell the hope of Shedeur Sanders as our new franchise QB. Does he start right away? If he does, there's probably going to be growing pains. There usually are. Jaden Daniels do not grow on trees. So they're really in a
Mhm.
tricky spot here where, to your point, they have to do something aggressive because they need to resolve both problems. The problems are roster's not good enough for the long term, especially a quarterback.
Mhm.
But if we don't win enough games here and now against an extremely difficult schedule, I might add, then we're not going to be here to see it through.
Thanks for watching this episode on the Bet Canada channel. Hit that subscribe button because I've got more Giants content coming with Pat Leonard you're going to want to see.